Have you been wondering how the riding modes work in a Honda Rebel 1100 DCT? Well, you came to the right place because in this video we're going to do a deep dive into each of the three rider modes, and we're even going to create a custom user mode. Then after that, we're going to hop on the bike and I'm going to do my best to describe how each of the rider modes feels and give you some tips and tricks as to which situations and which types of riding each mode is good for. Let's get on. Hi, welcome back to Inland 208 Adventures. My name's Chris, and this is my 2025 Honda Rebel 1100T DCT. Do you love motorcycle adventures and Honda Rebel 1100 content? Well, you better subscribe because this channel is right for you. Please let us know in the comments if you have a favorite rider mode, or if you've created a custom rider mode, please let us know how you set it up. I love to see the conversation going. Now, let's go ahead and get in. All right, so to get started, we're going to go ahead and go through each of the three rider modes that Honda creates at the factory, which is Rain, Standard, and Sport. And then we're going to create that user mode number one, which I haven't done yet. I have 1,225 miles on this bike, and all of them have been with Honda's pre-programmed modes. So to get started, you're going to go to the thumbstick on the left-hand handlebar. You're going to go right for the menus, right again for settings, again for function, and one last time for riding mode. And here we are. So you can see that we have custom mode number one, custom mode number two there. And then here, this shows you where the other riding modes, how they are set up from the Honda factory. You can't change those, they just are what they are. So we're gonna look at those. But first I wanna put your attention over to these tuning values here. If you have a manual Honda Rebel 1100, you only have three. I have the DCT, so I have a fourth, which is the DCT, and we'll go over that here. So the first one is P for engine power output. You have low, medium, and high. For engine braking, the same, low, medium, high. DCT, what that does is it's gonna make your shifting either less aggressive or more aggressive. So whether it shifts at lower RPMs or higher RPMs. And then you have your traction control, again, low, medium, and high. So first, I'm going to go ahead and skip setting up the user mode and just go straight to the rider modes that come from Honda. So this is Rain mode right here. You can see the power output is set all the way down low. The engine braking, the same, all the way down low. The DCT is going to shift at really low RPMs. So you're going to have a lot more of a dulled throttle response, dulled engine braking, and then the DCT is going to shift at those lower RPMs. But as you can see, that traction control is set all the way up. So when you're in those situations where it's wet and slippery, the bike is going to be as smooth and as stable as it possibly can be. So moving on, we're going to go to sport mode here. So you can see the power is all the way up. The engine braking is right in the middle. The DCT is pretty aggressive. It's going to give it to you. Higher RPMs there before it changes. And then we got the traction control set all the way down low. So this mode is supposed to be a little bit more fun, a little more ludicrous. And it does feel more sporty. Each of these rider modes, you should know, basically give you a whole different bike. And that's one of the things that's fun about it. So standard mode, really boring to look at anyway. It's just, you know, kind of stable across the whole way there. So your power, engine braking, DCT, and traction control are all kind of set to that midpoint. So now that we've looked at all three of those modes, we're going to go ahead and go back over to the user mode number one here. Now what I'm looking for with my user mode number one is that kind of very similar to the standard, but I want the DCT to shift at those higher RPMs, because coming from the world of manual motorcycles, it's shifting a little bit on those lower RPMs and kind of erring on the side of fuel consumption and all that is a little bit weird to get used to. Not a bad thing, just definitely weird to get used to. So I'm just going to try to create, in my opinion, a better version of standard. So my power output, I'm going to leave in the middle. I'm just going to leave it, because if I wanted the full power, I can just put it in sport. The engine braking, I am also going to leave it right in the middle. I don't want it to be too aggressive. I like a little bit of engine braking, but I don't want it to be super heavy while I'm in stop and go traffic and stuff like that. The DCT though, I want it to shift a little bit more aggressively. I like it with those higher RPMs coming from manual motorcycles. That's how I want it to react. So I'm curious to see how this feels when I get on the road here in a minute. And the traction control, I'm going to leave alone. I'm just going to leave it where it's at. because it doesn't bother me one way or the other. This is just mostly for that kind of in-town riding, because once I get to twisties and those types of scenarios, throw it into sport. Okay, so now that we've gone over all of that and we set up our custom rider mode, let's go hop on the bike. All right, so we're starting this riding part out, going in rain mode here. This is just kind of a quiet road I found. And so we're going to do this riding test using the same road under the same conditions at the same time, so it's just a good comparison. So I'm going to try to keep my speed low for the most part while I'm talking, so that you don't get too much wind noise. Okay, so rain mode. I'm going to lower the speed here. So there's definitely a dull, so here you can kind of see my wrist here. To get any sort of like real, I guess, like action out of it, you kind of really have to put your, I went pretty flat there, and it just kind of lugged and kind of just waited to do its thing. It's definitely, it's definitely more subdued, I would say. So I think it's definitely good, for a new rider learning to ride. This could be your lifetime motorcycle. And of course in the rain. Now, I did get to use rain mode in a rainstorm somewhat recently, where my son and I got stuck out after a long 130-mile ride. I haven't released that video yet, but we were in this rainstorm that was pretty heavy for North Idaho, and I was really glad to have, because this bike's got a lot of power and it's pretty torquey, so like I was glad to have a rider mode to assist me with that without having to concentrate so hard on doing little movements with my wrist and stuff like that, especially because this bike can get a little twitchy. We'll talk about that here in a minute on some of the other rider modes. And then you could see on the screen when the traction control is going off, it flashes at you in a yellow light. One of my favorite YouTubers, Life of Birch, if you're watching this video, drop a comment down below, because you have had, or Birch has had a couple different videos recently where he got caught in some pretty good rain or some standing water. In a video he did recently, it was like a typhoon type of rain, and I thought that was super crazy, and he had to ride through it, and I mean, it was the rain. You're just gonna have to watch the video. It's hard to describe just how crazy it was, but he made it through. So Birch, if you're watching this, I'd like to know how much your traction control light was going off, just out of curiosity, but I'm glad you made it home safe, brother. So this is rain mode, very subdued. It's just kind of, if you're looking for thrills, this is going to be a little bit more of a boring experience, but when you need to use it, you're going to be glad that you have it. So next we're going to go to standard mode. To change your modes, it's this button right here on your left. Now, if you're accelerating like I am, if you hit the button, I'm going to go over to standard here. It doesn't switch. See how it's flashing? It doesn't switch until either you're stopped or you're off the throttle. So you'll notice that when I got up to those higher speeds, I quit talking so that I wasn't fighting with the wind noise. But so when I took my wrist out of it, then it switched to standard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn around here, and then we'll do our standard test. Okay, so this is standard mode. Most of my miles I've had on this bike are in this mode. It's kind of your middle of the road. It's good for a lot of things. The only weird oddity to get used to is that the DCT likes to be a little bit more economical. It likes those low RPMs when it switches gears, and it just kind of wants to chug around. It was weird to get used to when you're used to a manual motorcycle. But then I had the chipmunk. But then I had the thought, the bike knows what it's doing. Honda designed the bikes to be able to be chugged around, so you feel like you're really low on the RPMs, you feel like you're hurting it, but I really don't think that's the case. This bike's just kind of designed to do that, so you just kind of have to trust it. But so here, I'll go through some gears here. We'll slow down and then go through some gears so you guys can kind of hear what I mean. And it is a little bit dynamic, where if you're putting your wrist into it, it will wait to switch gears. It's not going to do low RPM under all riding scenarios, but I'm just going to simulate just normal riding, not trying to put my wrist into it. So this is what it does. So it likes to switch. It likes to switch at like 2600, 2550, somewhere in there. Now I'm going to manually lower the gears a little bit, and I'll show you. So I'm just going to hold 30 miles an hour as best I can, and it's going to start shifting gears. Now we're in 4th, now we're in 5th, and it might even go to 6th. Maybe not, because we're about 2000 RPM. So here I am going 32 miles an hour, and the bike wants to be in 5th gear. So it's just kind of weird to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. What's nice about this bike is that you could just kind of forget it. You could just enjoy the ride. There's no, thinking about all that stuff. Now that does become, second nature, and I understand that, but it is just kind of nice just to kind of sit back and enjoy the ride and not have to worry about it. But it does take some getting used to. But it just kind of likes to chug. So here I'm putting it on it. And it just kind of stayed in 5th gear from 32 all the way to 50 miles an hour. It just chugged all the way up. But if you put your wrist into it, it'll give you the power. Even though it's in the same gear, it's got enough torque and stuff where it'll go. So that's standard mode. Now we're going to go ahead, I'm going to put it into sport here. Now this is a completely different experience. You could already see it's already lowered the gears here. I'm going to go low like I did before. Now this is a lot more throttle responsive here. It's going to give you the full beans. I'm going to go ahead and start from a stop, and we're just going to go. This is the fast mode. Ready? Here we go. So yeah, that was pretty quick. 0 to what, 58 or something like that. And no, I did not have my wrist that far. I probably maybe had it, I don't know, 1/3 throttle, half throttle. It's just a quick bike, but when you're up in those higher RPMs and you're up a little bit in the gear, we're going to go around this roundabout here. When you're up a little bit in the gear, that engine braking is really nice. Now, where the engine braking gets weird, let me go a little bit lower here. So here I am, 20 miles an hour. Now, if I got a car in front of me and I'm having to regulate my speed a little bit, this is where it gets a little bit twitchy. See, there's really hard, like if you're needing to maintain 20 miles an hour, it gets tough because the throttle is so touchy here. There's like hardly any difference between pulling you back and pushing you forward with that engine braking. So that's the negative aspect of this. If you're like above 30 miles an hour, we're just gonna lean this puppy down here. If you're above like 30 miles an hour to 35, the engine braking is a little bit more of your friend. So I'm going to go back on the road we were on here. Kind of in a more rural area, so there's hardly any traffic. So here we go. We're going to go to 35. It's not so twitchy here. When you're above that 30 miles an hour, it seems like that's where this is. See, I can kind of find that sweet spot and hold it there without being pushed forward and backwards by the twitchiness of the throttle. But you do have, but if I take it off, that engine braking is nice. So this mode is really great in the twisty. So if you're twisting around, you want that power. And then if you got a corner, you got that engine braking, slow you down. You might not even have to use the brake. So in some of those rides where I've done, where I'm riding around one of my favorite roads on Hayden Lake, I am using that engine braking more than the actual brakes. And it's such a good mode for these twisties and just kind of maneuvering around. Or if you're just on the highway, it's good for that too. But if you're like in city driving and you're stop and go, I think the throttle's a little too twitchy for me. It makes it hard to it makes it hard to look cool, because then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, holding on for dear life, and then you're trying to slow down, or you're not even trying to slow down, you're just trying to maintain a speed, and it just cuts out the power, and you've got the engine braking, so it's just hard to be smooth in that. So my recommendation is to put it into standard mode, or your user mode if you're in a situation where you're in stop and go traffic, or you're just in traffic in general. So now I'm going to go to my custom mode. I'm really curious to try that out. So we did mode number 1, so I'm going to go to a stop again. Now we did on this one kind of medium on everything, except for we wanted the DCT to be a little bit more aggressive with the shift points, a little bit more normal in terms of manual motorcycle riding. So it should give us about medium in terms of the throttle output, but better shifting points than just standard mode. So here we go. Let's see if I end up liking this. Yeah, I like that. See, okay, so now let's go ahead, let's slow down, and we're going to maintain that 30 miles an hour like we did last time, and see if it's going to take us all the way up to 5th gear. So 31, staying at 3rd. Yep, and this is what I like. You know, another thing that's nice about having that more aggressive shift pattern, like on sport mode or on this mode here, is that you get to listen to the bike more. And that actually is pretty cool. When it shifts down too low, you can't hear the bike, especially if it's a little bit windy. Hey, there's some deer ahead of us. I don't know if you guys can see that in the camera. It's pretty far ahead, but that's pretty cool. Oh, there's one more. That one was a buck. Let's see if we can get a closer look. Oh, I think we can. There he is. Look at that. The young buck. Hey, buddy. Looked like he kind of kicked his leg at me a little bit. Kind of funny. So anyway, back to this. So we're here. Look at that. We're maintaining 32 miles an hour, and we're on 3rd gear, and it's not taking us all the way up to 5th like before. So I like that a lot. And you don't need that super intense throttle response or that super intense engine braking if you're just commuting around. So I intend to use this just for my commuting around, going to work, going back from work, just kind of your everyday riding, and then use sport mode for things that need sport mode. So I'm going to keep testing it out and see how that goes. But so far I really like it. Yeah, that is much better. Much better. And see, that's a good amount of engine braking too. So we were up, I can't remember, 45 or so. Took the throttle off, and it was enough engine braking to slow you down, but it wasn't jarring. It's a good, I mean, I think the way I set up this user mode, kind of basing it off of standard, I think that's a good all-rounder. It just kind of takes the good parts of standard and then just changes that DCT a little bit to be more like how I would ride a manual motorcycle. And I think we're getting the best of both worlds here for your just standard everyday riding, nothing too fancy. So I'm going to go ahead and ride this down here a bit, and then we'll go and finish this up. This is my first motorcycle with rider modes, and I have to admit, I do like it a lot. If this video was helpful to you, please consider giving it a like. And if you want to support this channel even further, we now have Super Thanks. You can find that on the bottom of the video. And we also have new memberships now too, which offer you exclusive perks and of course, early access to our videos. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and we'll see you in the next one. Ride safe, everybody.